think about ritual and we think about these crucial points in our life, end of life stages, that when we feel hopeless, when we feel like things are at end, we turn to God. But for some people, that's not an option because they don't believe in God, or for whatever reasons, religions have scorned them, and they don't feel that sense of security or hope or help that they need there. And so I think it's important also to remind that it's not necessary for God to intervene or be a part of whatever ritual we create. I tell people, I'm in a community and I encourage them to pray, and I've worked with people who are atheists, and I tell them, well, we're going to pray. I use the word pray, but it doesn't have to be prayer. We're going to envision something, right? It's the idea that we're taking what's in our mind and trying to put it into something tangible, something we can see and experience. And that doesn't require a God. It doesn't require a spirit. It doesn't require a life after. It doesn't require any of those things. But the ritual in and of itself can be healing and important for us. And I think that's what's important. You know, when I think of some of the rituals that I've done with people. There's one with our family when my grandmother was in her last days. She had cancer, and we decided not to treat it because, you know, she was old already. Ya pa que, we say in Spanish, what for anymore, right? But the family gathered there, and we all held hands, and I wiped her down in a traditional way, the way we do with flowers and stuff. And then we all just spoke to her and just said what we needed to say to her. And it was our way of saying goodbye and saying what we needed to, but also for her to hear it. And she really, really appreciated this. And we've done this several times with other people where, you know, we don't have to invoke the divine. We don't have to invoke anything. We're just going to be there present with someone else and let them know of their importance to us, and that they'll not be forgotten, and that they will continue to live in our hearts and in our minds. And I think that in a sense, that's part of what we want. We have a tough time letting go sometimes because we're so attached to people, so attached to life. We're worried about them, or we're worried that no one will remember us, right? And what did we leave behind? It's a time of reflection when we're at the end of our life, thinking about what did I accomplish? What did I do? What were the things, you know, what was on my bucket list and what did I not get to? And some people couldn't get there because they didn't have the resources, and other people for other reasons. We struggle. I don't think I'm too far out of the ballpark when I say, for a lot of queer people, we have been so abused in so many ways. Some of them sexually, many of them by our parents in emotional ways. There are all these ways in which we've been so emotionally abused that we come into adulthood spending the rest of our life trying to resolve those and make peace with those. And we're not always successful. And so we're burdened by those. And so we'd like to be able to move past those. And we aren't always able to accomplish what we want to in life because we're stuck in these places that were childhood traumas, right? And so some rituals along the way that help us to let go of someone else's garbage, which is what it was, how other people felt about us. And I think that that's what I would want to say here. Even though you grew up in a household where you were told by your parents or by your religions or by your churches or by your schools or the people around you that there was something broken with you, about you, or something wrong with you, that at some point we need to say, you know what, no, I'm not broken. I live in a world that perhaps hasn't gotten their stuff together and hasn't been able to accept the fact that there are lots of people in the world, lots of different types of people, and there's room for all different kinds of people. We have a lot of privilege right here, right now, as we have this conversation. But if we're in Russia, we couldn't have this conversation, right? If we were in some places in the Middle East, we would be facing the death sentence. So we have privilege here. There are some places that don't. And while we can complain about the hardships we've had, we also have to recognize these hardships haven't gone away. And we're just talking about people who identify as queer. we're not even getting into all the other ways in which people are different and ostracized. So it's about finding that place within ourselves that despite all the assaults, that we can hold our head up, look in the mirror and say, you know what, you're okay. You're okay. Yeah, you're carrying a lot of baggage. Yeah, there's a lot of pain. Yeah, there's a lot of hardships. But you're okay. And you don't need to apologize to anyone for that. And to be able to arrive at that, especially before we get to the end of life, right? It would be helpful. No, it would be helpful. So those are some of my thoughts about it.
Atek Patson, I feel truly, I wish that I had a mentor like you growing up. Just saying your words, it's just like my heart is just like melting open. You know, I think now it's a little bit easier for the younger generation to, I mean, they're fierce, and there's a ferocity to them that I think, you know, me coming out during the time of AIDS, sex and love and death were intermixed. And I think that as a chaplain and as working in the hospital, I think there needs to be a sense of humility, and also that I am not the arbiter of, or the shepherd. I'm keenly aware of the power dynamic. And for me, meeting someone, I meet them as, you are my mentor, you are my teacher, you are the person in the bed who is the expert. So teach me about you, please. And also to, I think what you said, you know, to acknowledge our own brokenness. I mean, to be a healer, to be a teacher, to be a mentor, to be someone who helps or a caregiver, we must come and explore to the depths of our own being, our own brokenness. It doesn't mean that we cannot be healed. And in a sense, I think we are perhaps in an absolute level, wholly healed already. Fundamentally, we are already always healed. And coming from the Zen tradition, I think Dogen and Hakuin and a lot of the Zen masters, the patriarchs, our ancestors say the same kind of thing. Yeah. We are already inherently Buddha nature already. And to find that, to have the confidence to discover that within us is what makes us human in a way. To know our prejudices, to know our brokenness, to know our individuality in the whole, that I am completely unique, and to believe in oneself. For so many years, I did not believe in myself because I didn't have a mentor. But you had just said, Atek Patson, like that gave me a sense of like, yes, we belong on the table. We belong in the circle of humanity. And we have a uniqueness, all our own, two-spirit, queer. It's our voices, our uniqueness needs to shine. And I think the young people here, I have hope for the future. I know it's dark, but I have hope for the future. So I think, yeah, please.
You know, one of the challenges is that there are all these things that are imposed upon us as we come into this world. And the first is this gender binary, right? And we try to fit within that binary. And there are all these ways in which I know growing up, I kept telling myself, you're not much of a man, right? And today, when I remember being in a group of men a while back, and I said, I'm a man. And they all kind of look at me funny, right? These are all straight men. They're all looking at me funny because I had no doubt about the fact that I'm a man, right? But however as we see ourselves, it has to be from the core essence of who we are and not how someone else is perceiving us. And that's our challenge. That's our challenge, is to arrive at that place to say, I know who I am. And I don't need to excuse it. I don't need to apologize for it. So I can do the kinds of things, if we're looking at gender roles, I can do the kinds of things that women do. And it doesn't bother me. I can wear a dress very comfortably and be really dressed up and comfortably, not being dragged, but dress as in some of the attire that a woman is ascribed to wearing. And I'm not uncomfortable with it. People can call me any gender now, and it doesn't mean anything to me because I know who I am. And that's where we want to get people to that place, so that it doesn't matter what others say to us, that we're okay with who we are. That's, I think of the women that talk back. When men say something, the women talk back. They're dangerous. Those women are dangerous. In the same way, we as queer individuals, however we see ourselves, when we talk back and we say, no, you don't get to define me, In an indigenous perspective, there's no binary. There's a spectrum. And on this spectrum are places along it that we find ourselves. And the spectrum isn't even a single spectrum. If we look at the way that we make love, the way that we have sex, all the ways in which we are ourselves, that those fall upon a spectrum. And there's, I don't call myself gay, and I use the term queer here for these places because people understand that. I don't call myself Two-Spirit. I don't call myself gay. And the reason is because I don't agree with their politics. I was part of the gay movement. I was part of the Two-Spirit. I founded the National Two-Spirit Society, but I don't agree with their politics. And I found them, I don't want to get married. I'm happily single. And so the politics of gay marriage means nothing to me. And the men that I have sex with are straight. They have wives. And I don't want to get caught up in everyone else's morality around that. These are consensual agreements that we have. So along this spectrum is a place, we have a word for it in our language, tlamach. And tlamach is to be at a place without conflict. Rather than being on one end of the binary or the other, masculine or feminine, light or dark, or all these ways in which we do these binaries, that there at the middle is this place of harmony, a place without conflict. Tlamachni is a person without conflict. But that doesn't make, that's in terms of this trajectory of thinking and analyzing and deconstructing all these things around gender and the way we look at ourselves. That's a difficult place for people to understand sometimes, is that I live in a place without conflict. I'm okay with who I am. It's the rest of the world that's in conflict. But I'm not even in conflict with the world. I don't care. And that's the place, yeah, that's the place where we want to get people to, right? So.
Labels are important, but we have to remember that they're a construct as well, right? So when I go into a patient's room, I see the disease, right? I look in a chart and see, okay, cancer, blah, blah, blah. They have a medical record number, so they're a number, yeah? And then I go in and then, I try to imagine that this person, of course, I'm meeting them not in the best situation of their life, right? But I also imagine too, that they are more than who they are. For example, they might be a mother. Yes. They were a daughter. Yes. They are a lawyer, perhaps. Yes. They wear different hats, yeah, and roles. And so labels are important for us as markers to define each other. But when we start to see that as that's all, then we make a mistake. And what you said is just so beautiful, the diversity of a spectrum, like the rainbows, like, as you know, we're both artists, so we work with all of the colors of the rainbow that our eyeballs can see. And yet we know that there's infrared past red, there's ultraviolet past violet, there's X-rays, right? There's gamma rays, there's all sorts of other colors, so to speak, that are in that family of the spectrum that we cannot discern because of our eyes. There's a limitation. So therefore, I think there needs to be a humility of like, there's only so much that we know. And there is a mystery that we cannot always answer. And that's also beautiful too. Yeah? So I think the celebration of that, like what you said, like the spectrum itself, like I don't want to be defined as boom, 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 boom. And it is an illusion in a way, but it does help, like it's the oil that helps society. But society, what that also is a construct. Here we're getting all philosophical and everything.
Yeah. But you know, these are the things that we have to go through, because I know that there was a time that I believed what I needed to do to be whole was to be in a relationship. And
Yes.
we go through that because that's a script that's given to us, whether we're heterosexual or queer, that there's a script given to us that in order to be whole, we have to have someone at our side. And that's just not true. That's not true. And even that we need a God, that in order to be whole, we need a God, or that we need a religion, or that we need something to believe in. And for periods of time, perhaps that's something that we experience. But we don't have to get stuck there. We can continue to ask the questions, what else? What else? What more? And in so doing, leave things behind. You know, I'm a spiritual leader in our community, but I'm an atheist. And I only use the word atheist because it's what people will understand when I'm trying to explain something to them. I don't believe in a God. I don't believe in a higher power. That makes no sense to me. But I do believe in people.
And the irony is that atheist, right, that is, you know, you've been ascribed as an atheist means that you're not spiritual. Look at you. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, human beings are inherently spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They might not be religious, but all beings have a spiritual aspect to them. I went into an astronomer once. I mean, he's like, oh no, chaplain, no, I'm not interested. Not for me. I'm like, really? Well, what? Just one question. What is it as an astronomer? Because I wanted to be an astronomer when I grew up. Too much math involved, but I love it. And so I asked him, what brings you awe? When you look at the night sky, what does it do to you? And what he said just blew me away. And I can't even paraphrase it. It was the most deeply spiritual statement that was scientific and yet very spiritual. Yeah. There is something that connects the stars. There is dark matter. There are things that are unexplainable and has exquisite beauty. Why does a gas planet orbit, right, so close to the sun that in our mind, in our physics, that's not possible? It is. That brings me a sense of wonderment and curiosity. That is spiritual. And in that sense, we forged a relationship. You let me come back again and again, and we had deep philosophical, deeply meaningful conversations. So don't get caught in the word, the label, atheist. Yeah. And God or higher power, deeper power, whatever Hashem, whatever you wish to name that unnameable force, when we can dip into that, find that little spark within us, perhaps, we can heal the world perhaps a little bit. We can bond ourselves with each other, regardless of labels.
I would just want to say that the two of you are extremely lively, extremely fierce, and I'm really appreciating this. I'm also appreciating what's going on in the chat. I don't know if you two have been noticing this, but I love what Intrins has said. Intrins, I don't know if you want me to read what's in your statement or if you want to read it yourself. I just wanted to give you that opportunity. if you're able to turn your camera on. And I would encourage everyone on the call now, if you want to turn your cameras on, if you can, please do it. I would love for you to ask these two questions, but maybe I'll start by just reading what interns had to say here. Oh, there you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Justin. I use he, him pronouns. I was just really appreciating a comment earlier that just made me realize about sort of like limited intergenerational relationships within the queer community that, you know, we have sort of in heteronormative or faith-based communities. And, you know, there are these rituals that really support one's spiritual development and passages through those, like the rites of passage and such. And I just felt like it was just kind of a profound realization for myself and just such a great opportunity for creating spaces.
Oh, that guy's a priest? That guy's a priest?
Hi, you're live. Speaking for myself, the last 2 years of COVID, I taught myself how to do digital art, and I joined a figure drawing class. So I go to different figure drawing classes, both in Zoom and also together, and we draw, you know, a nude model for different poses for upwards of 2-3 hours. And I'm struck by and I love it, what you said, like the different, there's young people, there's young queer people, there's you know, middle ages, there's seniors there, it's a great coming together of, I don't know, different generations, and all learning, sharing that space together. It is kind of a ritual together. And getting to know each other. I don't know where I heard it, NPR or something. I was listening, like, what's the secret of growing old? And it was like, someone said, I forgot who it was, and it was like, the fact that I have friends that are on the spectrum, my age, like 80, all the way down to 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, and 20. And I even have all my kids and grandkids and children that I play with. So it is that ability to be with people of all ages. I just, the previous speaker, just I wanted to get it personal, like how that lands in my life. Yeah. Cross generations, intergeneration, like where is the space where we can all share and be with each other in that circle, right? In that healing circle. We're so separated in this, everything's so separated, and it's so, now with TikTok and Instagram, and like it's just maddening. Surely it's chaos.
I wanted to acknowledge also, I mentioned that our next table talk will be on April 26th with Marn Lucas and Jacqueline Boyd, and Marn is here. Marn, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just thought, what's been percolating in your mind, you know, as you've been listening in to Atik Patson and Soren?
Oh, everything that they have been talking about tonight resonates with me so much. And I mean, I've been like laughing and crying through the entire thing. I just feel so seen and heard. And, you know, the process of working with the dying and I'm an end of life doula, and I'm an artist, and I collaborate with terminally ill artists as my artistic project. And even though I've been doing that for the last, like, say, 7 years, when I join these sorts of conversations, I think Segan said, you know, you learn from the patient or the client. They are the teacher, and you never stop learning. And so tonight I've learned so much, but it's also been reinforcing so many ideas about, you know, feeling misunderstood as a queer person. And like, we have so much power here meeting together and sharing. And I'm very grateful. So just thank you.
You know, I also do work as an artist, and I paint naked men. I paint men with hard-ons, right? Because that's beautiful, and that's why I see it. But I can't just display my art any place. So so when people ask, "What kind of artist are you?" Well, I'm an indigenous artist, but you're not going to see any feathers, right? because there's something that is just, for me, absolutely beautiful about the human body. I mean, if you think about the universe and the trajectory of the universe and its capacity to arrive at a sentient being, which is us, who have the capacity to reflect on ourselves and the universe and our bodies, the bodies that we have that sometimes we can sculpt by diet and exercise and all these things that there's just an innate beauty to it. And yet we're so ashamed of it. The outside world has such a shame around it that to look at a naked body, even if it's a painting of a naked body, stirs something inside of them, which is discomfort. And so I paint it, but I paint it because that's what gives me passion. And then after I'm done, I'm done with the painting, right? But it's the process. And yet it's just art, and we're still excluded from the spaces where other people can just appreciate the art for what it is. It's just art, right? Yeah.
I don't know who said it, but like change always comes from the margins. I don't know, but that rings true for me. I'm hearing Atek Batson's hearing you tonight and you know, being in this, engaged in this conversation, just like I really honor and celebrate. I'm so proud that we who live in the margins and we who are the voice of that threshold, we have a mission to stir things up, perhaps, to unturn what is conventional, so that we can maybe see a different perspective. Maybe others can see a different perspective, and thereby we can love each other more, appreciate each other more, perhaps.
Thank you, Soren. Any other questions from our audience? There was
So many wonderful chats here. Wow. Yeah, so I wanted to mention, you know, of course, I think in a lot of these talks, Dr. Ira Bayek is speaking about, of course, the four things that are very important at end of life, right? Is one, very, very simply, to say thank you, to have a sense of gratitude. The second is to say it. I love you. Say it to your loved ones. Don't always assume. Say it. To heal any brokenness, yeah, or to mend any bridges, if you can. That's a hard one. And of course, the last one is to say goodbye, yeah. And I think in Zen, we say this, it's like death and impermanence is so prevalent in Buddhist practice itself, right? The world is constantly changing. I am not going to be here for long. We're just travelers here. And to really appreciate, not in a morbid way, but like in a way of like, what, Ash Wednesday was like, what, last week or, you know, recently, right? So it's like that marking of time, a ritual of putting the ashes, that to dust you came, to dust you will return. Only one day a year you're going to remember that? I don't know. Every practice, every breath is the first and the last, right? So to really appreciate the impermanency of life helps us really live life to its fullest, I think. And I think for me, as being an artist, and I know Marna, you're an artist too, right? So it's like art really has an incredible healing power, yeah, to it.
You know, you remind me of a time when I'd gone down to Puerto Vallarta, where a lot of people go, and I had just come back from, you know, this is in the 90s. This is before people started heart treatment for HIV, and I was losing my eyesight. We didn't know it at the time, but what I had was CMV retinitis, and I was losing my eyesight. And the doctor didn't know what it was, but he's trying everything, and we're treating it. And at one point, there's something that happened with my eye that was affected, and it was this like flash, like this lightning within my eye, and it was a point at which, you know, it's starting to detach or something. But we treat that, we're getting it, we're better, and I'm just a few months away from that. And I remember sitting on the beach in Puerto Vallarta, and then it happens to my other eye, this flash, this thing happening. And I thought, I can go back and I can sit in a room and receive the treatment. And if I lose my eyesight, the last thing I see are these four walls. Or I can sit here on the beach and enjoy what there is to see right here, right now. And I stayed there on the beach. Now, turns out it wasn't anything serious. It's something that just happens sometimes, but it just felt too familiar. But it's that idea of, you know what, you only get one chance. And so enjoy it. You can make it miserable if you want, or you can just enjoy it and appreciate it. There will always be people around you and events and situations around you that disrupt your life and make it uneasy and uncomfortable and give you something to complain about. Or, you know, you can just let it go, detach from it, as the Buddhists say, detach from it and just enjoy life and enjoy what you have. Because we are blessed. We are blessed, even though we sometimes don't acknowledge it.
There's a great freedom, don't you think, that when we let go of outcomes? It's not like the finished painting, actually. It's the process of creating that work. You said that a couple of minutes ago. It's like there's when we let go of outcomes, when we let go of ought to, shoulda, coulda, wouldas, we get our power back.
Well, you know, one of the things I say to people is that, you know, if you have something you need to say to someone, if you have something that to settle your own heart you need to say to them, then say it to them. But if you expect that because you say it, that it's going to mend the relationship, or it's going to make things better, or that they're going to change, then you're holding on to something that's going to cause you more pain. Say what you need to say and then let go. And they're going to do what they're going to do. You just get on with your life. You said it because you needed to say it, not because there's an outcome that you expected. Because if we hold on to those outcomes, we punish ourselves.
Yeah.
Just want to go back to the chat here. There's some great stuff here. Ken, thank you for reminding us the power of music in ritual.
Yeah.
And we heard some of that from you, Soren, at the very beginning on the harp. And I also wanted to make sure you saw Cynthia's question here. She was like, I would love to hear more examples of rituals and artifacts that you have used at the end of life. And I think this is for both of you.
Do I have time to show the tribute? So during COVID, so many people died. There was refrigerator trucks outside of the hospital, and there was a hospice that was a pop-up hospice in the hospital. So people were just coming in and dying. They were there for a couple of hours, maybe a day or two. And using my art, I created, I just didn't want these people to die alone, and I did not want them to die with a number. And so I talked with their families, and the social workers talked with their families, and we gathered who they were, their names, what's important to them. And I created tribute posters. I don't know what else to call it. They were 20 by 30. I had only an hour or two to do them, so they're not like refined. And can I share? Yeah, let me just share a couple. Yeah, let me just share. These are all anonymized, so they're not the real person's name, but these are all of their favorite colors. These are the images and symbols that they loved in their life. These are the words that describe them and all the idiosyncrasies. And by creating this and putting these posters at the head of their bed, very few of them saw them as they were dying. Most of them were actively dying. But for me, it was an incredibly healing experience to honor them as a human being. And that though they were dying of COVID, and many of them were young, when their families were able to come in for the last 20 minutes of their life, this is what they were able to bring home. So this was a ritual of coming together and acknowledging that we as caregivers were treating them as a fully human being with loves and sadnesses and losses. And that this was, although the end of their life, how can we possibly put it all into one poster? But it is as much as I could do, and it hold an incredible meaning for them. And many of them brought this to their funerals and of their loved ones and the memorial services. So ritual is really important, right? So time, space, music, chanting, prayer, words. So you incorporate, you need to be an alchemist. I mean, Atik Patson, you're a master of this. There has to be a ceremony. It has to be a spiritual theater that goes on. I'm not meaning entertainment. I'm meaning like Greek theater, which was part of their church, a healing circle, a drum circle. There's something incredibly sacred about that. And when the families were able to come at the end of their loved one's life, we hold a circle, we hold each other's hands, and we read these words out loud as the person died. This is who you are. This is who you will be. And this is your marking in this world. Tribute.
In responding to the question of ritual, there are no right or wrong ways to create ritual, either for someone who's at the end or for the people who are left behind. And I really want to say that out loud and emphasize that, because one of the things that churches and institutions do to us, they say, this is the way that you do these rituals. I remember being at my mama's funeral when she died, and there was a medicine man there, and he's speaking through his wife because of his rituals, he can't speak to me directly. And the message is, well, there's a certain way that these things are supposed to be done, blah, 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 right? And I said, this is what my mama asked for, right? There is no right or wrong. And this is what we needed. And so you can find the rituals that you need. My caution is, make sure it's not all about you. That if you're doing a ritual for someone who's at the end of their life, make it about them, not about you. If I'm sitting there chanting some song or doing something and they can't relate to that, that's about me. That's not what they need. And so make it about them. And after they pass, if there's something you need to do for yourself, then you can make it about you and do that in your own way. But if you're doing it in a group, you always have to be cognizant of the fact that sometimes you may be out of sync. And so that may not be the space for you to do what you feel like you need to do. Communal ritual has to follow. We have to have some agreements, right? But individual ritual, we can do what we need to do, right? So that's all I would say about it. Just be careful what you do, but there's no right or wrong. What's right or wrong is when you're no longer tuned into the person for whom the ritual is, right? And if it's for you, that's one thing, but if it's for another, then that's where we have to do our work. So, yeah.
Atik Patson and Soren, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for being so generous with us. I want to invite all of you to come back on April 26th for our next table talk. I'll put that in the chat again. I will be sending out a recording of this to everyone who registered, and some more information about our speakers and other resources. I want to wish everyone a good night, And I hope to see you again at other Reimagine programs in the near future. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you.